Okay, this video is to give you a really brief, non-exhaustive tutorial of this website that hosts an enormous amount of information relevant to snow science curriculum. So this is an offshoot of the USDA and the NRCS, which is called the National Water and Climate Center. And so this is their landing page. You can get there by typing in nrcs.usda.gov, this video will sort of walk you through a few different pathways by which you can engage with the site and use it to extract data that might be relevant to your analysis. So you can see on the landing page alone, the thing that comes up is the snow water equivalent from the date that you're accessing the site. So this is from up to yesterday. So this is the SWE up to now, and this is just a shaded diagram of the Mountain West. That might be useful for you, but you probably are looking at a particular region, which might be in Colorado, and you can see this is interactive. So I can click at any point and pull into the specific data that's generating this model. But that's not the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to quick links first, and then I'm going to click interactive map. And the interactive map is this amazing map which is of North America, and it collects information in real time from all the SNOTEL sites and all the sensor data, and it allows you to parse that data in real time and represent that graphically on the map. And so what you have in terms of navigating this page, every dot represents a different location or site where sensor data is being actively collected. What you have on the bottom left is the legend, which is indicating to you what is being plotted currently. So it's being default to the plot that we saw on the main page, which is the SWE, or the snow water equivalent up to today's date. And then on the right, you have all of the options for the conditions or the elements, and then the specific parameters which you want to plot in any given moment in time for your analysis. So we can zoom in a little bit and get closer to the region of interest for us, which is going to be the state of Colorado, so defined by this border here. So you can see I can hover in, and it's going to tell me the different sites, their site names, their elevation, and then it's going to tell me their median SWE, because that's what's being plotted right now. I can also click at any point and pull up the actual hourly data and daily data, the historical data for that specific SNOTEL site. Okay, so I'm going to pop down here. So there's the Wolf Creek site. So that's 11,000 feet. I can click on that. And what you'll see it pull up is a little summary of that station. So this is the Wolf Creek Summit, the SNOTEL site, 11,000 feet, reporting the snow water equivalent, 80% of the NRCS median over the last 10 years. And then what I can do is click this. I'll just right click and open it in a new tab to pull it up so I don't lose my site. And this is immensely useful. So what we see here is snow water equivalent here plotted as a function of the month for this particular season. And then on the right, you can see the legend, which indicates what each of these lines is plotting. So the black line you can see is 2022. So those are the dates. That's this particular season or cycle. And I can hover over this. You can see the real-time data that's leading into this black line. So this is this year for us, and then it's being plotted on top of the median value from the last 10 years, which is that green value. So you can see that we were off to a slow start in November, but then we saw an increase. So we're getting closer to what the normal median snow water equivalent for the last 10 years should be. You can see the minimum value and the maximum bounds. Those are plotted in red and in blue. So we're somewhere in that range. And what's cool is you can compare this very easily against previous years. So I could just click on 2021. That'll pull up that orange line. You can see where we are relative to last year at any given date. You can see we started kind of similarly here, but then last year we had these nice big steps that put us up above what the median value was. But then we sort of intersected again, so you can plot these lines just like that. And this data can be extracted in tabular form. If you want to work this up in terms of your analyses, you can click this CSV button. That will prompt a file download in a CSV format, which you can open and process in Excel if you want to do your own analysis. And then finally, this bar at the bottom is essentially a scroll bar. And so you can see I get a double-ended arrow down here if I left click and hold, I can drag left or right, and that changes the scale or the window over which I'm plotting, which can be useful. So I can click and drag this one alone on the right, that changes my right bound. I can grab this one over here, that changes my left bound. If I want to, say, zoom in on one particular area or one particular duration. And then if I want to go back, I can just go up to this button here and click Reset Range. Okay, so I'll go back to the interactive map here, and we can look around a little bit. So, I could click at another site. This is the Lily Pond site. It may take a little bit of time to generate this, but it'll generate the same snow water equivalent plot over the last season. It'll give you a picture of the actual sensor site where the SNOTEL is installed. So what other data can we access here? Well, if I go over to this plot over here, I'm clicked under station conditions. So these are the SNOTEL stations and the sensor conditions that they're measuring. And so under element, see, this is an expandable menu. So I'll click element. It's clicked on snow water equivalent, which is why it's plotting that. But I could choose a variety of different things. So maybe I want to know the snowpack depth as a function of all of these SNOTEL sites. So I can click this. And what you'll see is it updates my legend here, and you can see that I now have snow depth being plotted here. You can see in our legend, though, it says median missing. The reason why these aren't color-coded right now is because I have selected under element that I want to plot the snow depth, but then down under parameter, that's the specific style of plot that I want to generate, at least in terms of the color map here. And so right now it's saying percent of that measurement as a function of the median value. And it says the median is missing, so it's not able to plot that as a color because it's not comparing it to any real number that it has in the database. So I can change that to value. And now it's plotting just the overall snow depth up until December 19th, which is yesterday when I'm making this video. And so the parameter sets sort of the conditions by which you want to plot this. There's a variety of things here that you can play around with. And then after parameter here, we have a separate section, which is date, frequency, and duration. So I could choose to plot not the daily value of snow depth, but the monthly value of snow depth. You see that this will now reflect that. This is now up to the end of November because that's the last complete month. I can change that here if I want to plot these in different ways. And so it's immensely powerful. And we can change this for different dates, different years, over different ranges. If you want to get a sense for like what did the snowpack look like as a distribution over the state in 10 years ago this year, or in the minimum year, what did it look like? Under each of these elements, snow water equivalent, snow depth, snow density, precipitation, moisture, temperature, reservoir, and stream flow, these are all sort of the main elements that you can plot here, which can then be parameterized by comparing it to the median or the average or the minimum or whatever. But also note that under each one of these elements, there's this value called delta. And if you click delta, what that does is it pops up down here under date, frequency, and duration. It gives you a window that you can compute that value over. So if we're plotting a value of in this case the snow depth as a delta, then that allows me to look at the change in that singular value at each one of those SNOTEL sites in, say, the last day or the last month to date, etc. And so that's a nice way to get a sense for what's been the snow depth change as a function of a particular duration. Of course, there's other ways to extract this data in tabular form. This is just a nice way to get it very specifically as a function of the SNOTEL site across, say, the state or the region that you're interested in. Okay, so the third element here that I'll show you is the snow density, and it's important to note that the density here, you see if I have this clicked and I have it selected a value, it's reporting this as a percentage, which is different than an absolute measure of snowpack density that we may measure in the field. So the way that the NRCS, or really any snow course, measures snow density as it's being plotted here as a percentage, is going to be the SWE, or the snow water equivalent, which is really the height of equivalent water that the snowpack would equate to if you melted it out, divided by the actual height of the snowpack. So in this case, if you have a snow density of 50%, what that really means is that you have a snow water equivalent that's roughly half as tall as the actual thickness or depth of the snowpack. Or in other words, there's at the higher the percentage of snow density here, the higher the snow water equivalent per height of the actual snowpack. That's how that's being measured. Here's a quick visualization of that, just because in case that wasn't clear. So this comes from the NRCS, and this is a little document called "What is Snow Water Equivalent," which is pretty handy. And if you go down here to the snow course, they give you a description. So density for the snowpack is calculated by dividing the snow water equivalent, or SWE, by the depth of the snowpack. And so their example is 14 inches of snow water equivalent divided by the actual depth, which is 42 inches of the snow, gives you a 33% density. Okay, so there's a lot more to play with here that I'm not going to go into, either because I don't have time or it's not relevant to snow science curriculum, but go ahead and feel free to play around with changing the different elements and the parameters. You can extract a lot of really useful information depending on what you're asking. You can change up your locations here. You can constrain your searches by elevation if you're doing a study based on where you are in the continental U.S. in terms of altitude. You can change what type of snow sensor network that you're drawing your information from. This isn't exclusively SNOTEL. There are a variety of things here that are contributing, different snow courses, SNOTEL sites, etc. And then you can also change your map layers here if there's different things that you want to include. So the default here is this Esri Nat Geo World Map, but you can change this to a variety of things, which would update in real time depending on your needs. You can also, under the overlayers section of the map layers, you can indicate, right now we have the region indicated, which was that blue line, but we could indicate our subregion, the hydrologic basin, different subbasins, different state watershed boundaries, so Colorado and then the Colorado subbasin, so lots of information here to be used. Okay, one other thing that I thought would be helpful to show is this quick links section. Earlier I clicked Interactive Map, which brought us here. That gives you sort of complete control over the map and the display that you want to create. But the NRCS has also set up a bunch of predefined map links that are used frequently. So you can click there and they sort of have it separated out by topic. So if you're interested in snow, you can look at the snow water equivalent for the last percentage compared to the last 10 years. You can click on stations, basins, or stations and basins. That'll pull up any one of those maps. So I can click stations only, and that's going to represent all of the snow water equivalent, compared to the median over the last 10 years. So that's pretty handy to do this pretty quickly. You can grab snow depth. A lot of these things we already did, but they essentially just pre-program the element and parameter, date and frequency for a specific piece of data that's often collected, and then you can use that as a starting point to then sort of fine-tune your search. Okay, so the other thing that's really useful is to be able to navigate to an individual SNOTEL site page, especially if you're doing a lot of your analysis or work at an individual site rather than trying to collect aggregate or metadata from a variety of sites across a state or a continent. And so I'll use Wolf Creek again as an example, and if I click this, it doesn't matter which element or parameter I have selected at this point. What I will see down below is a section that is called Data Reports. And under this, I can generate some quick data relevant to what I have pulled up here as an element or parameter. But what I want to show you is if I click Site Page. So if I click Site Page, that's going to pull me up to this specific SNOTEL site that's relevant that I clicked off the interactive map. And so this is where the data is actually hosted and originated that's drawn into the interactive map. And so I bookmark lots of SNOTEL sites, both on my phone and on my web browser, for zones that I'm in and I'm monitoring frequently. So Wolf Creek being one of those examples. And so this can give you lots of information very specific to that site. Okay, so a few things in how to navigate this page. The user interface isn't the most intuitive, but it'll get you the information you need as long as you know how to extract what you want. So one thing that can be really helpful is to start by clicking this View Daily Sensor Descriptions button. And what that's going to do, and often I'll just open this in a separate browser if I need a reminder, but a lot of the data that you'll extract or export into CSV files will be abbreviated with some sensor label. And so it's not always intuitive if you're not used to looking at these things what that means. And so like this WTEQ or WTEC is actually reporting on the snow water equivalent. Whereas I-1 is the precip accumulation. There's a couple of these different sensors, etc. And so this is essentially a handy key which tells you what the abbreviated label is and the actual parameter that it's measuring. And it also gives you a bunch of information about the exact sensor and where the sensor is located in physical space, if that's relevant to you. Okay, so when you're back at the site, there's lots of different stuff that you can extract from this. One that's pretty immediately relevant if you're trying to track stuff, and the change in things in like the last week is to just go to the standard sensors here, and then under daily you can click last 7 days. And what that'll do is it'll just generate tabular data for most of the sensors. So you've got snow water equivalent, depth, precipitation, just as a function of day here. And you can grab this data if you want like this and copy and paste it into Excel. Or I can show you how to extract this in another way. If you want this as CSV, then you can just go up here to Output Format, click CSV, and pop a file out. You can change the duration over which this is plotting here. You can change the layout. You can change the units, and you can change. You can fit this to screen, and then the report details are essentially telling you the sensors that were used to compute each of those things, and then any relevant computations that were involved in that calculation. If you click on daily readings, that looks at the water year. So that pulls up not just the last week, but everything back to, in this case, October 1st. Same sensor values here, and if you want that, you can dump it as a CSV. If you want all the standard sensor data since the SNOTEL site was operational, you click this daily CSV delimited. So this sensor at Wolf Creek was put in 1985. So this pulls you into a page that looks like this. And so you can start to see back in 1986, and then these are all delimited data. And so the delimited data is based on this comma here. So you can copy and paste this, paste it into Excel, and then parse the data by this common delimiter. That gives you all the data since before I was born. And then you can have element-specific information extracted. So if you're interested in snow depth as a parameter, click the last 7 days. That'll pull up just snow depth related measured values and computed values. So we have the snow water equivalent over the last 7 days, the change in SWE, then the snow depth, these are start of day values, and then changes in snow depth, that's the delta. And then of course you can do the same thing where you look at this over historical or different years, depending on what you want. Similarly, you can do this with the snow water equivalent temperature, etc. Okay, so one more quick thing I'll show you. I don't use this very often, but it's sort of a different way to extract data in maybe a more controlled manner. You can go to Quick Links and then Report Generator, and you'll get a screen that looks like this, where you can select what type of data you want. So in this case, I want the SNOTEL data, and then I can enter a specific station, or I can do an advanced search and click it. And you can sort by a variety of different information here. Choose the element that you want to plot, and then you get a variety of different options here that you can plot, and then functions that you can extract from that data, including the value, the mean value, the max, and the min, and then you can extract it over particular days. And so this is a little bit more of a streamlined tool to get exactly what you need without the sort of map interactive component. So if you're used to using the site and you're looking for data, this is a nice way to do it too. Okay, last thing is I'm going back to Interactive Map here, and I told you this, but I wanted to just show it explicitly here. It's going to default to station conditions, but sometimes you want to look at values for specific basins or subbasins. So you can click on the station basin conditions section, and this is how you generate maps for something like snow water equivalent as a function of what that 10-year median value is that we saw on that initial page. So here you can see for full basins where we are relative to the median snowpack of the last 10 years. But you can do this. This is for SWE, but we could do this for snow depth, for instance, and then compute that against a variety of different things. So in this case, this is the snow depth as percent of that average. So this is just showing you at this date right now, this is the end of December, by basin, where are we in terms of the last decade of snowpack.